Thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I am your host, Nathan.
I'm Daimon.
And we're going to continue with the last team here in the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. In 2021, they went 12-5, and they were first in the AFC South, unfortunately. They lost the divisional round to the Bengals 16-19. Everybody we covered in the AFC lost. They went to the playoffs, lost to the Bengals. It seems like.
Well, that's because the Bengals went to the Super Bowl.
I get that,
so
but I'm just saying.
Everybody they played lost because they went to the Super Bowl. That's how that works.
I get that makes sense. Anyways,
Can I just ask this question because I just thought of this just now? Do you consider them your biggest rival in conference?
In conference,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess so.
Because I know for me, Green Bay and Chicago, right? I mean, that's been well established, goes back years. Your guys' conference is a weird one because you got like a couple expansion teams. Tennessee used to be Houston. Houston and Indy weren't originally in the same. So it's kind of like a thrown together,
I would say
I
don't view them the same as you view Green Bay. Matter of fact, for me, it's the Patriots that we have any kind of.
Well, that's my thing, right? That was my thought. It feels like to me, especially starting with the Peyton Manning era, your number one in-conference problem has been Tennessee, consistently. Like the McNair era.
McNair was good.
This current era, I just feel like they are consistently the thorn in your side. Where like Jacksonville's had a couple seasons here and there, Houston's had a couple seasons here and there, but for the most part, those teams have not been good over the last 20 to 25 years. Whereas Tennessee has been more consistently the thorn in your side. So I was just curious.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same kind of thing, I don't think. At least from my perspective.
Like, if you beat them, does it mean more to you than when you beat Houston or Jacksonville?
No.
Okay.
No.
Fair enough. I was just curious.
No.
Crossed my mind.
No, as a matter of fact, us beating Jacksonville would be... Anyways, yeah, that's...
If you didn't watch the Jacksonville video, go watch it. You'll see his thoughts on that. Ooh, that was fun.
Anyways, all right. They were 17th in yards offensively. They were 15th in points offensively. 12th in yards allowed on defense, and then 6th on points allowed in defense. So, look, solid numbers.
Yeah, other than the points allowed, though, solid numbers, but middle of the pack, right? Yeah. That's middle of the pack.
Yeah.
And you're in a very loaded conference. So, middle of the pack in a very loaded conference, not so good.
Yeah. All right. The GM is John Robinson. He's been there since 2016. That's 6 years. Look, I don't think he does a terrible job. They compete. So, I think he does a good job.
They have been good.
Yeah.
I'm not, we'll get into what I think about what they're doing at the moment, but I think they have been good. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't look at him as a bad GM, though.
No, but maybe
going forward,
maybe it's time to move in a new direction, possibly, or I would like. Well, we'll talk about it.
Coach is Mike Vrabel. Been there 4 years. His record is 43-27.
Well, it's a very good
I like
record.
Mike,
I think Vrabel's a good coach. I think Vrabel's definitely a good coach.
He's an easy person to like too. Like he's got a personality there. So, free agent additions. Austin Hooper from tight end from Cleveland. I like Austin Hooper. He's somebody that I was wanting the Colts to target. So I think he's got a lot of upside, and
he could be solid.
I'm sure he'll definitely make an impact on the team.
Yeah.
Jamarco Jones, tackle from Seattle. Don't know much about him.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him.
A.J. Moore, safety out of Houston. I think he's a solid safety, and I think he'll definitely, his impact will be felt. DeMarcus Walker, defensive end out of Houston. Don't know as much about that. Trenton Cannon, running back out of San Francisco. I don't know anything about him. That's it for free agent additions. They had some of the lowest amount of free agents we've covered in the AFC, at least. That was it. Free agent losses. Roger Stafford, guard, went to Buffalo. I think they're going to fill that a little bit.
I can see them feeling that. I think he's a solid guard.
He's a solid guard. David Quisenberry, guard to Buffalo.
I don't know how you lose both of those guys and not how it affects you.
I don't either.
Especially since they didn't bring in anybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rashawn Evans, linebacker to Atlanta. Jayan Brown, inside linebacker to Vegas. Anthony Firkser, tight end to Atlanta. I think that they upgraded that.
They upgraded that.
Kyle Pico, defensive tackle to Vegas. Marcus Johnson, wide receiver to San Francisco. Cameron Batson, wide receiver to Atlanta. Kerry Blasingame, fullback to Chicago.
By the way, Chicago fans are very excited about Boston game because we haven't had us a fullback in a while.
Wow.
And Chicago fans love us a big gnarly fullback.
I mean, good fit for him, I guess.
And well, he's got a blasting game.
Whatever. Tizar Skipper, outside linebacker to Pittsburgh. Oh, the Skipper. Brandon Kemp, tackle to Indianapolis. Solid player.
I don't think he's gonna be any good.
I don't know anything about him. Kevin Hogan, quarterback to Houston. Sure. So really, there's not a lot to say. There's not a lot to say about the free agent additions or losses. Just to be honest with you,
I feel like they lost more than they gained. Though.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
I feel like they lost more than they gained,
especially with the two guards.
When you add in the trade scenario, they really lost more than they gained.
Trades. A.J. Brown, wide receiver to Philadelphia for a 2022 first rounder. Robert Woods, wide receiver from the Rams for a 2023 sixth rounder.
I'm sorry, but that's a loss. Look, no disrespect to Robert Woods, but A.J. Brown is one of the absolute best wide receivers in the game. He covered up a lot of issues that Tannehill has, especially throwing downfield.
Agreed.
And that is a big loss.
It is.
I think there was already a loss in the free agent signings versus losses. That's a big loss.
Agreed.
So to me, this is a team taking a step backwards.
Agreed. All right, let's get into their draft.
Yeah.
Round 1, number 18, they went with Traylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. This is supposed to be the replacement for him.
I think there's a varied opinions on Traylon Burks. He could be a lot of things. I don't personally think that he will end up being as good as A.J. Brown. He's definitely not as good as A.J. Brown right now.
Sure.
So whether he in 3 years is as good as A.J. Brown, maybe.
Still a step back.
I don't see it. So, yeah, I think that's still a step back either way you look at it.
I definitely agree 100%. I have the same thoughts on that one. Round 2, number 35, Roger McCreary, defensive back out of Auburn. I actually really like Roger McCreary. I think that he's going to be a very good defensive back. So that's a good pick. I like that better than the Traylon Burks. So. All right, round 3, number 69, Nicholas Petit-Frere, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. It was a guy that I was looking at, very athletic, and it was a guy that I was looking at for the Colts in round 4. They got him in round 3. No big deal. I think that he's a good player.
He might replace one of those jobs they lost.
That's right. He's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think they could look at him and have him play a year or two at guard and then eventually move out to tackle. But at least cover what they lost at the guard spot.
But again, you can say the same thing that you said about Traylon Burks. Regardless, whether he is as good as them,
he will be as good as them from day one.
That experience has got to happen first.
Yeah.
So, round 3, number 86, Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty.
It's interesting.
Well, look,
a lot of people had him as the best quarterback in the draft.
And you know what? Here's my opinion. At round 3, fine. You know what I mean? I felt like so many people avoided this thing that they do in the past where they go and they overdraft a guy like way too early. You know what I mean? I think Malik Willis had that possibility of being a guy that was going to be drafted way too early for his skill set. I think this is actually a good place to draft him, whether it is that,
The guy that he was most often compared to, Russell Wilson, 3rd round pick, ends up being a star. So who knows?
Yeah, and you know what? If that's what he is, then yeah, it's a good pick, and Tennessee made a good decision there. I really think so. Round 4, number 131, Hassan Haskins, running back out of Michigan. I don't really know that much about Haskins.
He's
their defense is what drew me.
He could be a good NFL running back. Honestly, he's got some skill.
Okay. Round 4, number 143, Chigosium Akinagwa, tight end out of Maryland.
He was one of the combine freaks. Ran a 40 time that for his size seems impossible. So very fast, big tight end.
Oh, that's right. I remember
that has
seeing
some potential.
I remember seeing that.
Didn't really maybe have the production at Maryland that would make you think that he was that. But when you look at what he did the 40 time in the 4th round, I mean, maybe not a guy that you're gonna, but like they brought in Hooper as a backup to Hooper and a guy, and he can learn from Hooper. I think that's an interesting.
And if he develops and Malik Willis develops, that'd be a good person for him in the future to throw the ball to. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Round 5, number 163, Kyle Phillips, wide receiver out of UCLA.
Now, I really like Kyle Phillips, actually. I think Kyle Phillips is a slot extraordinaire. Like, this is a Wes Welker, Amendola, Edelman. It's surprising that the Patriots didn't draft him, apparently, because I just named a bunch of Patriots. Like, he's that guy. He's that guy that's a little undersized in the slot, can run all the routes, catch balls. So I think he'll complement the other guys well. But again, I think it's still that's a piece for the future, not for now.
Sure.
That's my thought.
Sure. Round 6, number 204, Theo Jackson, defensive back out of Tennessee. Don't know much about him. He didn't show up on my radar when I was looking at defensive backs. So,
Agreed.
Round 6, number 219, Chance Campbell, linebacker out of Ole Miss. Again, somebody I don't know much about.
Yeah, but he's worth a chance.
Jeez. All right. Starters for the Tennessee Titans, projections for 2002. Obviously, you got the quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, 3,734 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, another 270 rushing yards, and 7 touchdowns on the ground.
That's a little bit better than Davis Mills.
Yeah. Listen, CBS came out with a report talking about grading the AFC South quarterbacks recently, and they put Ryan Tannehill above above Matty Ice. And you know what? He's not. I'm sorry, guys. He's not. He's not better than Matt Ryan, okay? I'm just want to clear that up. All right.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
I mean, that's how I feel. I want to say that.
Can we acknowledge the fact that I was on the Tannehill train at A&M and loved this kid and told you, watch out for this guy, and was extremely frustrated that he didn't turn out to be better at Miami, and then extremely excited when he did better with the Titans. I want to acknowledge all that before I say I don't think Tannehill's going to be able to win playoff games against the other quarterbacks in this conference. I just don't.
He's not.
I just don't. And with the roster taking a step back, I don't see how this team makes the playoffs. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, like he's a good quarterback to have on a team that's already built. And that's it.
I almost feel like this team would be better suited trading Tannehill and Henry and building around and going to that rebuild mode now, personally.
Just using Malik Willis. I wouldn't mind that, to be honest with you.
I'm sure you wouldn't.
I'd like that.
I'm sure you wouldn't.
I'm not really that scared of Tennessee, to be honest with you. I'm not really that scared of them.
Obviously, they're not going to do that this year. They would have already done it. But it wouldn't shock me if they fail to make the playoffs if you don't see moves like that in the offseason.
I think it's a great idea. It
wouldn't shock me.
That's a great idea. I would love for a rebuild Tennessee to be thrown into the conversation with my Indianapolis Colts and then the other
with the strength of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans.
That's the dream for me. Anyways, all right.
Well, that's basically what happened for most of Manning's career.
Yeah, sure. All right, running back Derrick Henry. Last year, 937 yards, 10 touchdowns, 154 receiving yards, but he only played 8 games. He got injured. Now, you look at those stats,
it's
like a lot of those stats.
Solid running back numbers.
8 games.
He played out the season.
8 games. Look, as far as I'm concerned, he's the only running back in the league that's better than my running back. And with his injury, we'll have to see how he comes back and relies off that. But Derrick Henry is a beast. He's a damn good running back. I mean, literally, in my opinion, the best running back in the league, and I have the second best on my team. So obviously, that says a lot. You can win games with Derrick Henry, that's for sure. And honestly, putting it on his back, he could take you to the playoffs.
They've done that.
That's right.
They've done that, and I think that was true before. I don't think that's true currently.
All right, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Wide receiver Robert Woods, 45 receptions, 556 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was injured. He only played 9 games at the Rams. So obviously for 9 games, that's actually really good production, really good numbers. So he could be a good addition there.
Well, let's all forget A.J. Brown.
Yeah,
you don't need him. You got Robert Woods.
That's right, exactly. Traylon Burks, rookie, obviously. That's the replacement for A.J. Brown, and as we discussed earlier, that's going to wait and see. You know what I mean? See where he's at talent level. Wide receiver Nick Westbrook, Inkine, I guess. 38 receptions, 476 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's the third wide receiver. All right. Tight end Austin Hooper, 38 receptions, 345 yards, and 3 touchdowns. To be honest with you, I would like to see a little bit. But he's a blocker, though, also. Like, he's mean. You know what I mean? Like, I like Austin Hooper. I think he's got a lot of upside. So.
Well, and he came from Cleveland. They had another guy, too, right? They had the... he was Cleveland's number 2 tight end.
Yeah.
So if you think about it as a number 2 tight end that can also block, those aren't terrible numbers.
No, they're not. And he can block. All right. Then we got Tony Carter at fullback. Their starting line is left tackle Taylor Lewin, left guard Aaron Brewer, center Ben Jones, right guard Nate Davis, and right tackle Dylan Reddens. I don't think that's a terrible offensive line.
It's a solid offensive line.
That's a good line. On defense, they got left defensive end Jeffrey Simmons, 54 tackles, 8.5 sacks, and 6 pass deflects. He's a very solid player. I like Simmons. I think he's got, Nose tackle Tier Tort, 16 tackles. Right defensive end, Denico Autry is the guy that came over from the Colts last year. 31 tackles, 9 sacks, 6 pass deflects. Really, when you look across the board, and when you look across the board here, and I'll continue with this, but 8.5 sacks from Jeffrey Simmons, 9 sacks from Denico Autry, who again I think was underrated, and I think he's a good player. Then linebacker Harold Landry III, 75 tackles,
He's a sack guy. It's like
75 tackles, 12 sacks, and 1 forced fumble.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 8.5 sacks, 9 sacks, 12 sacks. I mean, those are solid numbers, dude, across the board. That's something you can hang your hat on. That's for sure. Inside linebacker David Long Jr., 75 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 6 pass deflects. Right inside linebacker Zach Cunningham, 26 tackles. Linebacker Bud Dupree, 17 tackles, 3 sacks, and 1 forced fumble.
Another guy capable of getting even more sacks than he did there.
That's right. He definitely has a lot more upside than those stats show.
I would think so.
Absolutely. Left cornerback Caleb Farley, rookie last year. He had 4 tackles, 1 pass to flex. He only played in 3 games because of injury, so it's kind of hard to gauge where he's at. Strong safety Amani Hooker, 62 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, and 4 pass to flex. Free safety Kevin Byard, 88 tackles, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble return, 5 interceptions, 1 touchdown, and 13 pass deflects. As a busy man. Kevin Byard is good. That's good. Right cornerback Christian Fulton, 40 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 14 pass deflects. So listen, they got some stuff to work with there.
Look, I think they got a solid team, but it doesn't measure up to... this is kind of the theme of these videos so far, with us focusing on the AFC. The theme has been how deep the AFC is. I don't think they're as good as your Colts. I don't think they're as good as Buffalo. I don't think they're as good as...
anybody in the West.
Probably anybody in the West, yeah. I don't think they're as good as Baltimore, even with the questions about Lamar. I don't think they're as good as Cleveland if Watson plays, but that's a big question mark. I don't think they're as good as Cincinnati. So, we're talking 10th, 11th, 12th best team.
Yeah, they might be on par with the Steelers.
And, yeah. So, I don't know. To me, it's like, I almost think it's time to move on from Tannehill, move on from Henry, build around Liberty and these young receivers, and see what you got. I can see why you'd be hesitant to do that, especially like you guys are the only team in your division that's better than them. So they, if you have injuries or something, then they could still overtake you. And we talked about how easy your schedule is. That probably means their schedule's pretty easy too. So you never know. You might be able to sneak in. I just don't think that they're going to be good enough to get in the playoffs. And so then it's kind of like, what are you doing? Are you spinning your wheels? Are you going to spin your wheels for the next 3 years with Tannehill and Henry, and just keep,
as they age,
and pump out 9 and 8, 8 and 9 seasons over the next 3 years, and
which
your
is
fans,
what I feel like they're going to do this year.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, if that is what happens this year, then I think it's time to a good GM will go, okay, time to move on, and let's if we have to take 2 steps back in order to get 5 steps better, then let's take those 2 steps back now instead of waiting until later. I think they could very well be in that position next offseason. I understand why they didn't do it this offseason, but I think there's indications that it's coming when you look at the Brown trade and you look at the fact they didn't really go out and spend a lot of money in free agency. They got a lot of money wrapped up into this group, and it's not a good enough group to win the Super Bowl. So to me,
especially if you look at if Malik Willis actually does show up in camp, if he shows up and he impresses you as a solid quarterback that could be a starter going forward, I think the time to move on from Tannehill is there. I don't know as much about Derrick Henry just because, man, like you can literally put a load on this guy and win games with him.
Yeah, but the injuries are starting to add up, especially if you go back to his Alabama days. The injuries are starting to add up.
Yeah, but it hasn't slowed him down.
It's a position that we've seen so far does not scream longevity lately. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that you can count on him. Maybe you don't move on, but I don't think you can count on him being the
that's right. You got to
bellwether cow for the next 3 or 4
Completely
seasons.
Agree with that. Personally, myself, I would keep him on the team, build around a young quarterback if he shows up to be the guy, and then move on from Tannehill. I think that's an important decision.
And the market could be there for Tannehill.
That's right.
There could, maybe Cleveland's knocking on your door to get Tannehill.
That'd be a mess.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah. So like you said, solid team. I do think that they took a step back. I think my Colts are better than them. We are going to be number 1 in our division. Sorry, Tennessee Titans fans. That's just reality. So look for the downhill swing here in the next couple of years. And
I just gotta say too, I think I yawned in all 3 of the videos after we did the Colts. I think the rest of this, we have to go back and check the tape. Is that because I'm just so bored with the rest of the division? Yeah, it kind of is. Part of it is I'm tired. Part of it is I'm sorry, you guys are just a boring division. You just are. It's a boring division. The Colts, even the Titans, like they're a boring team. I'm sorry, they just are. They're a boring team. It's boring. It's okay, whatever. The GM's okay, whatever. And the coach is good.
Not as boring as the other 2 teams.
Honestly, I find Houston more exciting than Tennessee. Just because at least there's like some things to build on there. Tennessee's, it's boring. They got a quarterback that can't throw the ball downfield. They got a running back that's going to carry people until he gets hurt. Then he's going to get hurt. They got a defense that's solid but not great. That's boring. Maybe as a Chicago Bear fan, I just recognize myself in them, and I'm bored with my team.
Sure, I think their defense is a little better than you're giving them credit for, but that's okay. We'll agree to disagree there. And
you know what they don't have? They don't have a pair of pass rushers, sack artists. There you go. That compared to yours, the Raiders, the Chargers.
We just talked about how many sacks that they had. They had across the board. They had sacks, Damon.
Well, that's not because they're good at sacks. It's just because the quarterbacks in your conference fell down.
No, it's because they're good at sacks.
They had like 22 sacks just watching Trevor Lawrence trip over his own team.
Well, that might be true, but
I'm just joking. That's a bad joke. That's wrong. That was wrong of me. I shouldn't have said that. I take it back. They do have some good. I said Landry's a good pass rusher. They have some good pass rushers. I just don't think they're on the level of some of these other teams, and they don't have the secondary that's on the level of some of these other teams.
I can tell you, I'm not scared of them.
And they don't have the offense that's on the level of some of these other teams.
And agreed. Like from a Colts perspective, from a Colts fan perspective, I was a little bit frightened of the Titans. Not frightened of them, but just respected them. You know what I mean? Going like, hey, you got to respect this team. And obviously, they finished first last year in our division, so you have to give them that. But I don't feel that way about them going into this year. I really don't.
So here's the thing, right? The whole thing is we're judging the offseason. I'd have to judge this offseason as a.
I feel like they took a step back. I do. I don't know if it's giant steps back. Definitely steps back.
And maybe that's because they didn't have a choice salary cap wise. But when we're watching some of these other teams that we thought were in bad shape salary wise, still find ways to make additions and be sneaky and smart about what they do, it just makes you wonder if the Titans guys playing checkers while everybody else is playing chess. I hate to be mean to the guy. I don't follow the team close enough to really say he's the issue, but it does make you wonder. This was a Super Bowl contending team like 3 years ago, and now I look at them and go, I don't see how they make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're on the decline. They missed their window, and I'm okay with it.
All right, good enough.
Yeah, thank you for joining us here. If you got anything out of this content, give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Go ahead and comment. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why Tannehill is fantastic. Tell me why Derrick Henry is going to be the first running back in a generation, or 2 generations at this point, to be able to play into his 30s and still have a high level. Let me hear those things, because I don't see it, but maybe you do.
Yeah. All right, thank you for giving us a watch, and we look forward to seeing you next time.